Hello, this is my first podcast. My name is Marcin. I'm a biotechnologist. I'm a startupper, and I decided to do it because I think there is something is missing in the podcast space because you can find a lot of things about basic science, but when you think about so many things are being published every day, I just don't see. I just think that this could be interesting for people. That there is this part of science that is not really talked about, and this podcast is going to be much more for people who are in the industry, especially in the biotech industry. But since I'm also working at a startup, I will be also posting about some startup stuff. So that's going to be 50-50 here and there. So just to focus that a little bit, um, what I'm doing professionally, I'm working on 3D cell culture research models. And this means basically that we are creating small tumoroids, small cancer models, really growing in the lab, and using them to test drugs or to learn about the physiology of those drugs. And this is really something that you can find some professional materials about, but it's really hard to find opinions about it. And I really want to share my opinion there. So that's what this podcast is going to be about. Today, I will focus actually on just one type of them, and it's NAMs. It's new approach methodologies that I will get to in a few minutes. Um, but first of all, I'm actually very sorry for starting with a very chaotic thing. I just decided, well, it's better to start into something rather than try to make it perfect. Well, if we're gonna survive, then we're gonna make it much better, but that's for future. So now I want to. I'm thinking about doing this 5 to 15 minutes. It will strongly depend on the topic, on what we do. Whether it's an interview, probably that's going to be longer. Whether it's a short topic, it's probably going to be shorter. So this is not really for the average person who just wants to learn about what is DNA, what to eat, some health advice. That's it. It's not what I'm going to talk about. I will be really focusing on this part of science, especially biotech, where we do the things that are behind the main discoveries. So you can hear about new drug being discovered for a kind of cancer, but there were methods that people used to make that discovery, and that's what I'm going to talk about, especially when you talk about in vitro methods. I will be really focusing there, and there is a lot of happening that is really on the edge of science, and I think it's really extremely exciting. And I couldn't really find a place to find a more popular discussion about that. I feel like with this chaotic part of my discussion, I'm competing for the worst podcast. So I'm I feel like I'm winning already there. So please comment. And so let me just start with that NAMS. It's new approach methodologies. And I don't know if you know, but European Union just pushes very strongly to build research models that will replace animal models and will be those advanced models that will allow us to build better drugs. And by replacing animal models is obviously ethically very good, but it's not only because we don't want to kill mice, because there are millions of mice being killed for research. It is actually much more about I've been on one conference where the keynote speaker said, if you were a mouse, we could cure you from any tumors. And that's actually true, because there are many drugs that work wonderfully in animals, but they don't work in humans. And this new approach methodologies is really much more about creating in vitro or in silico models using human cells or human data, so that when you eventually test the drugs with those models, it is going to be outperforming animal models, which is ethically good, but it's also going to save a lot of money. Obviously, with new AI, there are many hopes. And this is really also the reason why I wanted to start this podcast, because there are hopes, but there's also a lot of hype. And as much as I truly believe it's a good long-term direction, I think the hype is also very, very real. And I see this hype very often in what we do, like in this part of the industry that we are in. There are sometimes people are coming with some very sexy words that are describing something, and they market it very well. And then suddenly that part of the business becomes an amazing trend. Whereas, let's be honest, trends are not building real science. They help fund real science. Like, everybody knows COVID, and like before that, people didn't know what is mRNA or RNA, and now everybody seems to be an expert. And it was wonderful that they had this technology very, like, not like basically almost ready to deploy. And obviously the push with the pandemic made it happen. I also got vaccinated with this mRNA vaccine. That was a huge breakthrough. But now, building on that, there are many companies that are, like, some of them will succeed, but some of them just seem to ride on the wave of mRNA, where, and I'm not criticizing that. Don't take me wrong. It's not about criticism. It's much more about starting an open discussion, because eventually, I have seen so many things that were supposed to succeed and they failed, and the reverse. So the things that were like they were rubbish for many years, and then they succeeded. So this is not about criticizing. It's much more about being open about different topics, and I think it's fair to say that you can dislike something and then basically say, well, I was wrong. So probably I will have to apologize many times for maybe not being able to see the value of some technologies before. But the reason for me here is really this fantastic part of many new technologies being created, and they bring new values. And this value will not always be appreciated immediately. But I also think, this more open discussion, this more public discussion as well, can be extremely helpful. So NAMS, going back, as you see, another digression. So again, I'm sorry for this chaotic jumping back and forth. So going back to NAMS, so new approach methodologies. The idea is really to build in vitro or in silico research models with human models and for humans to build better drugs. We actually, in our research, we focus in oncology, but you can do it for anything. I actually found more for cosmetics than for oncology when I was researching this topic. But the thing I wanted really to highlight is NAMs will be wonderful, but they are going to be tough. Because you have to, it's impossible to build a full human in the lab. I truly believe you can mimic the human condition very well. There is, let's say, since we work mostly in cancer research, let's say there is a type of metabolite being produced by cancer cells. And let's say your drug will be targeting this metabolic pathway. I truly believe you can create a research model that is answering this question, this particular question that that your drug is supposed to answer. The other question is whether that understanding of the mechanism that you have is real. But that's a different discussion there. What I think will not be possible is to build a model that will then answer most of the questions. And I've been to another conference where one very well-known scientist actually did put it very well, because he actually showed some data that where they needed a certain marker they could keep it expressed, and let's say they were testing antibodies, so they were able to show when this marker is expressed, then those antibodies can work. But for them to truly mimic what is happening in those tumors, they would really have to have a lot more understanding of where those markers are expressed, and then build several models with those markers, but then including, let's say, some immunosuppression or additional inflammatory state, or different hormonal background, different metabolic backgrounds. So, let's say people of different age would have different metabolites. And I'm saying this just to highlight that NAMs, as much as they can be groundbreaking, as much as they will be ethically like the future, they are not going to solve all the problems. We really have to think, in my opinion, we really have to think about NAMs like very well designed tools. Like I do some woodworking for fun. So sometimes you build a jig that is helping you just to do one thing, but very well. And that's what I think NAMs will eventually have to be created as. So you will have to design them very well to be able to predict how those drugs are going to work and whether they are going to work. Then it could be actually helpful to use that model to screen bigger libraries. Anyway, I think I will stop for now. My competition for the the worst scientific podcast #1 is won. But still, I appreciate your time. Thank you for your attention, and feel free to comment. And especially if you have something around this biotech science that you would like to know more about, I'm very happy to hear that. I have lots of topics in my head, but it's always important to know what the viewers want to see. Thanks a lot, and goodbye.